Delegates and distinguished guests, under our procedural rules, 2 Democratic candidates submitted nominating documents to our convention secretary for the office of President of the United States, Senator Bernie Sanders and Vice President Joe Biden. As such, each candidate has provided names of individuals who will make nominating and seconding speeches on their behalf. We will begin with nominating and seconding speeches for Senator Sanders. Speaking on his behalf will be 2 progressive champions, Bob King and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I'm Bob King. As a proud union member and former president of a great American union, the UAW, I am honored to nominate Bernie Sanders for president. For decades, Bernie has led the fight for working families, fighting for workers' rights to organize unions and collectively bargain. In a time of enormous inequality, he understands that we must confront large corporations which have far too much control over our economy and our politics. Bernie believes health care is a human right and should not be contingent on a job. He knows we can rebuild our crumbling infrastructure by creating millions of good-paying union jobs while combating climate change. Bernie's moral clarity has emboldened the Democratic Party's fight for justice. The grassroots energy of his supporters has cemented important advances in our platform. Bernie will continue to lead a movement that helps defeat Trump and delivers transformational change. I'm excited to place into nomination the name of a great champion of the working class, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Good evening, bienvenidos, and thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed health care, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many, and who organized a historic grassroots campaign to reclaim our democracy. In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of health care, en el espíritu del pueblo and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. King and Representative Ocasio-Cortez. We now turn to nominating and seconding speeches for Vice President Biden. In a moment, we'll hear from Senator Chris Coons, who holds the Delaware Senate seat once held by the Vice President, and Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester, my colleague in the House. But first, we'll hear from Jacqueline Asby, a working American who met Joe Biden in a most unexpected place, the elevator where she worked.
I take powerful people up on my elevator all the time. When they get off, they go to their important meetings. Me, I just head back to the lobby. But in the short time I spent with Joe Biden, I could tell he really saw me, that he actually cared, that my life meant something to him. And I knew, even when he went into his important meeting, he'd take my story in there with him. That's because Joe Biden has room in his heart for more than just himself. We've been through a lot, and we have tough days ahead. But nominating someone like that to be in the White House is a good place to start. That's why I nominate my friend, Joe Biden, as the next president of the United States.
I'm Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, a small state where people expect to see their senators and even sometimes their vice president at the supermarket, at a church festival, out in their community. Joe fights for us because he knows our struggles and hopes. He knows the pain of loss and the worries of working parents. And he's always brought that same personal concern he showed for Jacqueline to getting things done as our senator and then as President Obama's vice president. Joe's tackled gun violence and climate change. He stood up to dictators and supported our troops. He led the recovery effort after the last recession and delivered on a promise to make our healthcare system fairer and stronger. Through it all, Joe Biden's never forgotten where he's from. He's been sustained by his faith and his family through the toughest of times, and he has the heart and the compassion for this moment. For all of these reasons and more, it's my honor to second the nomination of my good friend, Joe Biden, to be the next president of these United States.
I'm Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester. In some history class in the future, children are learning about this moment. They're learning about our pain, our grief, our worry. But they're also learning about a man named Joe Biden, about how he restored decency to our government and integrity to our democracy. They're learning about how we conquered a pandemic, stood united for racial justice, and built our economy back better than before. They're learning about how his leadership gave their generation a fighting chance. They're learning about us, too, about the resolve and the unity we showed against the forces of hatred and division, about the work we will do over the next 11 weeks, and about the night when, despite our distance, we came together to nominate Joe Biden for President of the United States, a nomination I'm honored to second.
Thank you all. Pursuant to our convention rules, we'll now proceed to a roll call by states on the selection of our party's candidate for the President of the United States. Secretary Wray.
Mr. Chairman, coming to you live from the Wisconsin Center, it's time to begin our virtual trip around America. Our journey begins at the site of a major step forward in our national journey towards justice. Let's go to Alabama.
John Lewis marched across this bridge in 1965 to demand the right to vote. A lifetime later, civil rights and voting rights remain America's great, unfinished business. But those who walked this path before us showed us the way forward. If we want to honor John Lewis's incredible life, let's restore the Voting Rights Act and ensure that our democracy belongs to all Americans. Alabama casts 8 votes for Bernie Sanders, and the great state of Alabama casts 52 votes for our next president of these United States, Joe Biden.
Alaska.
The waters we rely on to feed our families and make a living are threatened by climate change. When Joe Biden was vice president, he and President Obama made sure Alaska's tribes had a say on how these waters were managed. Donald Trump took it away. We must elect a president who will respect our voices, protect our waters, and address climate change. Alaska cast 7 votes for Bernie Sanders and 12 votes for the next president, Joe Biden.
American Samoa.
Joe Biden honors our service, and we trust him to support our community. As Vice President, he helped expand rural infrastructure to communities like ours, broadening our economic capacity. As President, he will continue to strengthen rural America, from New England to the Pacific.
On behalf of the Governor Lolo Matalasi Molinga and the American Samoa Democratic Party, we proudly cast 11 votes for our next President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Arizona.
As a middle school teacher, I know that public educators are doing everything they can to make sure our students have quality learning experiences this fall. As a mother of a high school freshman, I know that it's far from perfect. As an NEA union organizer, I'll fight to make sure that it's scientists, parents, and educators that decide when it's safe to go back to school, not politicians. As an Arizona Latina, I proudly cast our votes, 29 for Bernie Sanders and 51 for our next president, Joe Biden.
Arkansas.
Feeding people is an act of love, and I think we all can use a little extra love these days. So we took our food trucks out into the community to deliver meals made right here at the Clinton Presidential Center for our neighbors in need. Even when our leaders let us down, America kept looking out for each other. Arkansas cast 9 votes for Bernie Sanders and 27 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
California.
Climate change is not a hoax. It's real, and communities of color have been bearing the brunt of this reality for generations.
Joe Biden's plan to crack down on polluters to protect our air and water is about environmental justice and economic justice.
He'll prioritize equity and bring new clean energy jobs to Black and brown neighborhoods because that is how we build back better.
California, home to our next Vice President, Kamala Harris, cast 231 votes for Bernie Sanders
and 263 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Colorado.
Han and I grew up in poverty as immigrants, but we've been able to make a decent living. We're extremely lucky. But now we have 3 family members that tested positive for COVID, and it just doesn't feel safe to put Evan and Emma back to school. This is certainly going to be hard on them and on us, but millions of working families will have it much harder. I know Joe Biden cares about these struggles, and that's why I trust him to fight for us. With 1 abstention, Colorado will cast 36 votes for Bernie Sanders and 42 for our next president, Joe Biden.
Connecticut.
Firefighters are proud to put our lives on the line every day to protect our neighbors. It's a badge of courage. But while we are protecting your family, we need a president who is committed to protecting ours, and that's Joe Biden. He has the courage we respect and the commitment to working Americans we need now. On behalf of our governor, Ned Lamont, I am honored to cast Connecticut's 75 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Delaware.
Delaware passes.
Delaware passes. Democrats abroad.
We represent the millions of Americans who live outside the United States and vote back home. Americans abroad can make a difference in the states that will decide this year's elections. We need your help to elect a president who will restore our standing around the world. Go to votefromabroad.org to learn more. Democrats Abroad is proud to cast 10 votes for Bernie Sanders and 7 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
District of Columbia.
Welcome to my hometown and the best city in the world. Washington, D.C. is 706,000 residents strong. We raise families, pay taxes, and serve the United States military, just like every American in the 50 states. The House of Representatives just passed an historic piece of legislation to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. From Black Lives Matter Plaza, the District of Columbia proudly cast 1 vote for Bernie Sanders and 43 votes for the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
Florida.
When my daughter was murdered in Parkland, Joe Biden called to share in our family's grief. I quickly learned about his decency and his civility, but I also learned about his toughness and how he's beaten the NRA. Together with the other victims of gun violence and our nation's youth, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will take on the NRA again and win. Let's win back our freedom to live without fear. Florida cast 57 votes for Bernie Sanders and 192 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Georgia.
My mentor, Congressman John Lewis, knew that the right to vote is sacred. Georgians know that our ability to vote is under attack. Long lines, voter suppression. Donald Trump is even trying to slow down the mail and force us to risk our lives to cast a ballot. We will not be silenced. Take out your phone and text VOTE to 30330 and make sure your voice is heard in this election. From the cradle of the civil rights movement and in the spirit of good trouble, Georgia cast our 117 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Guam.
70 years ago this summer, Chamorros became U.S. citizens. We are proud of our resilience, proud of our indigenous heritage, and proud to be part of this historic moment for our party and our nation. From the land where America's day begins, Guam cast 2 votes for Bernie Sanders and 11 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Hawaii.
I came from the Philippines to Hawaii, the land of indigenous Native Hawaiians. Today, I want to speak to my fellow immigrants, to the essential workers on the front line, to the service members who wear our flag, to the parents with big dreams for their children. No matter where we came from, immigrants belong in our country's long fight for justice. We belong in the America we are building together. Hawaii, birthplace of President Obama, cast 9 votes for Bernie Sanders and 23 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Idaho.
We're not waiting for Washington to act on climate change. Here in Boise, we know that clean energy doesn't just mean a healthier planet, it means good, paying jobs. Imagine what we could do with a president that listens to science and leads with courage. Idaho casts 9 votes for Bernie Sanders and 16 for our next president, Joe Biden.
Illinois.
Discrimination has denied too many Black Americans the chance to own a home and build wealth. Joe Biden has a plan to end racist lending practices and help more people of color achieve the American dream of owning a home. This isn't just about racial justice. It's about stronger communities and more economic security for working families. Illinois cast 59 votes for Bernie Sanders and 122 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Indiana.
Here in South Bend, we once feared that our best days were behind us. But then we reimagined our economy with new jobs and even new industries. The Hoosier State is ready to lead America's recovery with our diverse communities, our talented workers, and our best-in-the-world agriculture. Joe Biden's plan gives us a blueprint to revitalize industrial cities and rural areas alike. Indiana casts 2 votes for my friend Bernie Sanders and 86 votes for the next president, Joe Biden.
Iowa.
We were going to talk to you tonight about biofuels, but the powerful storm that swept through Iowa last week has taken a terrible toll on our farmers, our small businesses, and our families who are still without power.
So while we have the honor of casting Iowa's votes, 11 for Bernie Sanders and 38 for Joe Biden, we also want to ask you to keep Iowans in your thoughts during this difficult time.
Kansas.
I'm a 4th-generation family farmer, but I worry about the next generation. Many of our young folks end up moving from rural communities to find jobs. Joe Biden has a plan to help new farmers get a good start. And by funding schools and health care, he'll make sure that rural communities remain great places to live, work, and raise a family for generations to come. Kansas, the Sunflower State, proudly cast 10 votes for Bernie Sanders and 35 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Kentucky.
One day when I was 14, my mom wouldn't wake up. Calling 911, I was scared not only because she was sick, but because I knew we couldn't afford the bill. Thank God she survived. When I told Joe Biden that story in 2008, he promised to continue to fight for folks like us and got busy passing Obamacare. 2 years ago, when Mom had a heart attack, we only had to worry about her getting better because Joe kept his promise. The Commonwealth of Kentucky cast all 60 votes for the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
Louisiana.
This used to be an abandoned building. Now it's a thriving art studio, a community hub, a place where independent artists can make their name and parents can bring their kids during these difficult days of remote learning.
Our cities are strong because our people make them strong. And our economy will come back because our small businesses will bring it back.
Louisiana cast all 60 of our votes for my friend and the next president, Joe Biden.
Maine.
My American dream, I'm living it. A 25-acre organic farm on the lake, a roadside farm stand, and a bed and breakfast. My husband and I aren't corporate tycoons. We just want to make an honest living and feed our community. Small businesses like ours are the backbone of rural economies across America. Joe Biden has a plan to help more Americans, especially people of color, start their own businesses. Maine casts 9 votes for Bernie Sanders and 22 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Maryland.
Black lives matter. And when it comes to racial justice, Black opportunity matters.
When Joe Biden rebuilds our middle class, he won't leave anyone behind. His plan, more capital for Black entrepreneurs.
More funding for public schools and HBCUs.
Banning racial discrimination in the housing market.
And paying every worker a fair wage.
That's building back better.
Maryland.
The home of Frederick Douglass.
Cast 1 vote for Bernie Sanders and 119 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Massachusetts.
We need a plan to get the economy going again. Joe Biden will get the pandemic under control, create new jobs in manufacturing and clean energy, help small businesses and our restaurants recover, and build back better so that our economy is stronger and fairer than it was before. Massachusetts cast 30 votes for Bernie Sanders and 83 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Michigan auto workers are the best in the world, but we'd be nowhere without Joe Biden. And a lot of folks wanted to let Detroit go bankrupt. But Joe Biden believed in us, and together we fought to save our auto industry.
Now he's got a plan to create 1 million new auto jobs by investing in clean energy. Joe Biden believes in American workers. He's got our back, and we've got his.
Michigan cast 53 votes for Bernie Sanders and 92 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Minnesota.
I'm here in Minnesota, the home of the headwaters of the Mississippi River. We know that a bridge shouldn't fall down in the middle of America, but it did. And we came together to rebuild it. That's what we do in America. That's what Joe Biden will do as president. He'll build back better. He'll cross the river of our divides and unite this country from our cities to our suburbs to our rural areas. And now we will virtually cross the great Mississippi to St. Paul to hear from my friend, Mayor Melvin Carter.
Thank you, Senator. As the 46th mayor of a city that's more than ready for our 46th president, I'm proud to cast Minnesota's 31 votes for Bernie Sanders and 60 votes for our next U.S. president, Joe Biden.
Mississippi.
Tougaloo College reflects the progression of a people from slavery to citizenship to scholarship and leadership, contributing to Mississippi and the world. Our alumni are leaders like Convention Chairman Congressman Benny Thompson. Joe Biden wants to invest $70 billion in HBCUs like Tougaloo. Imagine what impact that could have on HBCUs. Imagine what impact HBCUs could have on America. Mississippi cast 2 votes for Bernie Sanders and 38 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Missouri.
As a member of the International Union of Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, Local 1 St. Louis, I love walking around the city and seeing the contributions that my brothers and sisters have made. We stand ready to rebuild our nation's infrastructure, and with Joe Biden's leadership, we'll create millions of new jobs, building back better. Missouri cast 28 votes for Bernie Sanders and 50 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Montana.
When COVID shut down my college, I came home to my parents' ranch to finish senior year online. But some days, I can't even get a video to load or an email attachment to send. Without reliable internet, there's no remote learning, no virtual doctor's appointments, and just try starting a small business. Rural broadband can be a game changer for rural communities like mine, and Joe Biden has a plan to make it happen. Montana cast 1 vote for Bernie Sanders and 18 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Nebraska.
I work at a meatpacking plant, making sure grocery store shelves stay full. They call us essential workers, but we get treated like we're expendable. Workers are dying from COVID, but a lot of us don't have paid sick leave or even quality protective equipment. We are human beings, not robots, not disposable. We want to keep helping you feed your family, but we need a president who will have our backs. Nebraska cast 33 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Nevada.
Working people are the backbone of our economy and the key to our recovery. Joe Biden knows it's not enough to praise them. We have to reward them. So let's raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, empower workers to negotiate for better benefits and safer workplaces, and make it easier to pay for things like health care and higher education. I am proud to cast 24 votes for Bernie Sanders and 25 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
New Hampshire.
Hello from the Granite State. We trust Joe Biden. Joe will provide the leadership necessary to bring us back from this awful pandemic. Joe has a plan to attack global climate change once and for all. And Joe will restore honesty, decency, and trust to the White House, reunite all Americans, and build a better future for all. The great state of New Hampshire awards 9 delegates to our friend and neighbor, Bernie Sanders, and 24 delegates to the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
New Jersey.
We've been hit hard by COVID, but we're coming back. But we have to be smart. We have to listen to the experts, and we have to have a president who has a plan. That's why, in memory of all those we've lost, in solidarity with those who are sick or struggling, and in eternal gratitude for our heroic frontline workers, New Jersey cast 5 votes for Senator Bernie Sanders and 139 votes for the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
New Mexico.
Makoam, Hinomamkima Kirimba. Greetings and good evening. My name is Derek Lente, State Representative, coming to you from the homeland of my ancestors here at the beautiful Pueblo of Sandia. New Mexico is a diverse state, home to 23 indigenous sovereign nations with a rich multicultural history. We are all united by the love of this beautiful place that we call home, and we believe that we owe it to the next generation to protect the natural and cultural resources that are their inheritance. And to that end, also respect tribal sovereignty. New Mexico proudly casts 4 votes for Bernie Sanders and 42 votes for the next president of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
New York.
As an immigrant from St. Vincent and the Grenadines and an 1199 SCIU registered nurse, I am proud to be part of America's fight against COVID-19. But many healthcare workers don't get paid sick leave or have enough protective equipment. I have 2 children with asthma and a mother who's high risk. I worry every day about bringing this virus home to them. Joe Biden's plan will help us take better care of your loved ones as well as our own. Along with Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, I cast New York's votes. 44 votes for Bernie Sanders and 277 for our next president, Joe Biden. It's Joe time.
North Carolina.
I've been doing this for a long time, so let me just be plain. Black people, especially black women, are the backbone of this party, and if we don't show up, Democrats don't get elected. I'm putting on my mask, and we're going to every corner in North Carolina to help organize, because we need to make sure everyone shows up for Joe Biden. He will show up for us. North Carolina cast 39 votes for Bernie Sanders and 83 votes for the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
North Dakota.
The Shkatni Dosha, Dosha, Jeed. Welcome to the homelands of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara people. I graduated from a class of just 44 students, and I had to drive 3 hours just to take the SATs. But growing up, I knew that college was a ladder that could take you anywhere. Joe Biden knows that everyone deserves a chance to climb that ladder. So as a proud tribal member, as a Mexican American, and as a Harvard graduate, I am proud to cast North Dakota's votes. 10 for Bernie Sanders and 8 for our next president, Joe Biden.
Northern Mariana Islands.
Half a day, T-Row, and hello from paradise, the Northern Mariana Islands. We may be far away, but we're American citizens. And this year, for the first time in decades, we finally have a Democratic slate, because Democrats organize everywhere. But we don't get to vote for president, so please don't waste yours. The Northern Mariana Islands is proud to cast 2 votes for Senator Bernie Sanders and 9 votes for our next president, Joseph Biden. Sidus Ma'asi, Olamai, and thank you. Yee-hee!
Ohio.
It seems like every time working people believe in a Donald Trump promise, they wind up getting screwed. Well, Joe Biden has more than just a promise. He actually has a plan to bring jobs back to America.
Like electric vehicles or a national network of vehicle charging infrastructure that'll create good-paying jobs for skilled union workers like Josh. And the future will be made in America. Ohio cast 20 votes for Senator Bernie Sanders and 134 votes for the next president, Joe Biden. OH.
I-O.
Oklahoma.
99 years ago, racial violence devastated a thriving black community here in Tulsa. Today, hatred still lives in our nation, but so does resolve. Oklahoma refused to let ourselves be defined by division then, and our nation must turn back the tide of violence again, now. Oklahoma cast 13 votes for Bernie Sanders and 24 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Oregon.
As Black Americans standing on Native land, we proudly represent Oregon. The dual viruses, COVID-19 and racism, laid bare unequal healthcare access and deaths in communities of color.
The Democrats are working to bridge divides and make sure everyone has equal access to low or no cost quality care. Today, Oregon cast 16 votes for Bernie Sanders.
And with Senators Wyden and Merkley's support, cast 57 votes for Joe Biden.
Pennsylvania.
When Joe Biden was young, his father came to this house in Scranton, sat down on Joe's bed, and told him he lost his job. It's a moment that stayed with Joe his entire life. Right now, all across America, working families are experiencing that same fear and uncertainty. But Joe Biden has a plan to help them and to help our country build back better, creating millions of good-paying jobs, so more parents will be able to tell their kids what Joe's dad said to him all those years ago. It's going to be okay. Pennsylvania cast 34 votes for Senator Bernie Sanders and 175 votes for the next president of the United States, Scranton's own Joe Biden.
Puerto Rico.
Los puertorriqueños somos ciudadanos estadounidenses, algo que Donald Trump parece haber olvidado en los momentos más difíciles que enfrentó nuestra isla. Joe Biden siempre ha apoyado las causas de Puerto Rico y como presidente será nuestro aliado en la Casa Blanca. Sé que es la mejor alternativa para que los sobre 3 millones de ciudadanos americanos que residimos en esta bendita isla de Puerto Rico podamos ser respetados. Puerto Rico emite 5 votos para Bernie Sanders y 53 votos para Joe Biden.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, the ocean state, where our restaurant and fishing industry have been decimated by this pandemic, are lucky to have a governor, Gina Raimondo, whose program lets our fishermen sell their catches directly to the public, and our state appetizer, calamari, is available in all 50 states. The calamari comeback state of Rhode Island casts 1 vote for Bernie Sanders and 34 votes for the next president, Joe Biden.
South Carolina.
Mr. Chairman, I am Jamie Harrison, candidate for the United States Senate, speaking from the campus of South Carolina State University, the alma mater of Majority Whip Jim Clyburn and the late Dr. Emily England Clyburn, for whom its Honors College is named. This proud HBCU has contributed 22 general officers to our armed services. And tonight, I proudly cast South Carolina's 64 votes as follows: 15 for Bernie Sanders and 49 for our next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
South Dakota.
Midakiapi, relatives. As a first American and citizen of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, I welcome you to the Pahasapa, the Black Hills, the site of my creation story and home to the Ocheti Shakowi, the great Sioux nation. We often say, Midaku Yeyayasi, we are all related. Our next president must lead by this philosophy for the betterment of our next 7 generations. We cast 3 votes for Senator Bernie Sanders and 17 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Tennessee.
100 years ago tonight, suffragists based here at the Hermitage Hotel in Nashville cheered as Tennessee became the 36th and deciding state to ratify the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote. This year, I'm casting my very first presidential vote for Joe Biden. Women will decide this election and will replace Donald Trump with a president who respects us. Tennessee cast 23 votes for Bernie Sanders and 50 votes for our next president of the United States, Mr. Joseph R. Biden!
Texas.
A year ago, my safe community of El Paso was targeted by a domestic terrorist who murdered 23 innocent people, injured 23 more, and devastated all of us. His motive was racism and xenophobia. In the face of hate, we choose love. Siempre lo hemos hecho, siempre lo haremos. And in the face of continued gun violence in America, we demand change. The time has come to act. With 1 abstention, the great state of Texas cast 98 votes for Bernie Sanders and 161 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Utah.
Here in Utah, we've had mail-in voting for years. If you're registered to vote, you automatically get sent a ballot. It's fast, it's reliable, and it's easy for everyone to participate. In 2016, we had turnout well over 80%, and this year we're expecting even higher. That's why Democrats and Republicans here in Utah agree. Mail-in voting strengthens our democracy. Utah cast 17 votes for Bernie Sanders and 16 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Vermont.
The state of Vermont, strongly believing in economic justice, social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice, proudly supporting democracy and the Constitution of the United States, and vehemently opposed to the authoritarianism and racism of the Trump administration, is proud to cast 15 votes for Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and 9 votes for the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
The U.S. Virgin Islands.
In recognition of our Governor Albert Bryan Jr. and our delegate to Congress, Stacey Plaskett, we bring you greetings from the Virgin Islands of the United States. Yes! Where a young Alexander Hamilton was raised, the vacation home of a nominee with turquoise waters, white sand beaches, and friendly people. We cast our 13 votes for Joseph R. Biden.
Yes! Virginia.
3 years ago, my beloved city, Charlottesville, Virginia, was attacked by white supremacists and a young woman was killed. We were attacked again when Donald Trump praised those racists, turning his back on a community that just wanted peace. That was the day Joe Biden decided to join this battle for the soul of America. Over time, my wife, Ghazala, and I have come to know his soul. He's a decent, compassionate man. He will bring this nation together. Virginia cast 32 votes for Bernie Sanders and 91 votes for our President, Joe Biden.
Washington.
Xin chào. As a 15-year-old refugee from Vietnam, I knew that education was the key to finding opportunities in my new home. When having children of my own, I became an advocate to improve the public education system that gave me a chance to contribute to our America. Democrats invest in education because we are committed to fighting for all kids. Washington cast 43 votes to Senator Bernie Sanders and 66 votes to our next president, Joe Biden.
West Virginia.
West Virginians have changed the narrative about public education. Parents, teachers, and service personnel have worked together to fight for safe and welcoming schools, sufficient funding for classroom equipment, and fair wages for teachers and school service personnel. Elections matter, but so does activism. So let's keep fighting to guarantee a quality education for all our children, and let's elect a president who will fight alongside us. West Virginia cast 34 votes for our next president, Joe Biden.
Wyoming.
After our son Matthew's death in Wyoming, Joe Biden helped pass legislation to protect LGBTQ Americans from hate crimes. Joe understands more than most our grief over Matt's death. But we see in Joe so much of what made Matt's life special: his commitment to equality, his passion for social justice, and his boundless compassion for others.
With 3 abstentions, Wyoming cast 4 votes for Bernie Sanders and 11 votes for the next president of the United States, Joe Biden.
Wisconsin.
Welcome back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a great city on native land on a great lake. It's the place where I was born and raised, right in the heart of 53206 zip code. Now, this is a community that's been faced with some significant challenges due to historical injustice, but what many don't see is the joy, the resilience, and opportunity that lies within this community and so many others across America just like it, where hardworking people are fighting to provide for their families and to build a better future. We know that we build a better future for our nation by channeling Wisconsin's legacy as the birthplace of the labor and the progressive movement, and uniting around a bold, inclusive agenda that uplifts every community in the pursuit of a more just future, one that recognizes healthcare as a human right, one that tackles the climate crisis and takes on racial and economic justice. Wisconsin cast 30 votes for Bernie Sanders and 67 for the next president of the United States of America, Joseph R. Biden.
Delaware.
Long before this train station bore his name,
you'd see Joe Biden up here on the platform with the rest of the crowd, on his way to work or going home to his family. That's always been his North Star, delivering for families like his own, working people who struggle and sacrifice to build a better life. Nobody has ever had to wonder who Joe Biden's in it for.
Our nation faces daunting challenges, but I've known Joe Biden for 40 years, and there's nobody I trust more to lead our party, unite our country, and restore our standing in the world. What's more, he's humble. He tells the truth. He treats everybody he encounters with respect and builds bridges, not walls. He is a leader made for this moment and the finest public servant I've ever known.
Delaware is proud to cast its 32 votes for our favorite son and our next president.
Our friend, Delaware, Joe Biden.
Thank you to all our delegations. I'm pleased to announce that Vice President Joe Biden has officially been nominated by the Democratic Party as our candidate for President of the United States. Vice President Biden is hereby invited to deliver an acceptance speech.
Well, thank you very, very much. From the bottom of my heart, thank you all. It means the world to me and my family, and I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you, thank you, thank you.